Today's lesson is about adding and subtracting mixed numbers. So in the last lesson we learned how to add and subtract fractions with like and unlike denominators. Here we're going to use similar rules to solve for mixed numbers. So let's get started. So here's your first example. 2 1/7 plus 7 3/5. So what we want to do here is use one of the two correct methods to solve. Here I'm going to show you how to add these two mixed numbers together only by finding a common denominator, and then sometimes we're going to have to regroup our answer to help to simplify it. So here, let's start by finding a common denominator. 7 and 5 are your two denominators. You can multiply those together to get 35, and that just happens to be your least common denominator. So finding the common denominator, 35. I adjusted my two fractions. So 7 times 5 is 35. 1 times 5 is 5. 5 times 7 is 35. 3 times 7 is 21. Okay? So one common mistake I see, and I did not mention this in the last video, is that a lot of students will find a common denominator and write 35 here, but then they'll leave their numerators as they were. So they would write 1 35th and 3 35ths here, and that's not correct. If you change the denominator, you also have to change the numerator. Those visual blocks from the last video should have helped you figure that out. Okay? From here, it's just simple adding, though. We're going to add our whole numbers and add our numerators. So we combine the whole numbers to make a new mixed number. So we have 2 plus 7 is 9, and 5 plus 21 is 26. And then you'll notice, just like with the last lesson, the denominator stays the same. So here's our answer. We just want to check to make sure it's not able to be simplified. And in this problem, it's already in simplest form, so we're done. So simplify if necessary, but we don't have to here. So we make common denominators. We change the numerators to match them by multiplying by the same numbers, and then we just add. We add numerators, we add whole numbers. That's it. Okay? So let's use method number 2 now with the same exact math problem. So we already know what the answer is. It should be 9 and 26 over 35, but we're going to use the second method here. So some of your elementary teachers taught you to do what I just did with method 1. Method 2 is by making them improper fractions and then doing some adding and long division. So here we're going to make improper fractions. So, review to do that. You multiply the denominator times the big number or the whole number, and then add on the numerator. So 7 times 2 is 14, plus 1 is 15. You can see that here. And then for the other mixed number, 5 times 7 is 35, plus 3 is 38. So we haven't made our common denominators yet, but we made improper fractions. Step 2 is going to be to make common denominators. So we already know the common denominator is 35. So here, the numerators adjust. And so one thing you can notice here is that the numerators will be larger. So we multiplied by 5 here, and 15 times 5 is 75. We multiply 7 here, and 38 times 7 is 266. So if you don't mind working with somewhat larger numbers, this method might be the one for you. We finish up the problem the same way. We add our numerators together. So 75 plus 266 will give us 341. And we have our final answer. It's just not in simplified form. We cannot leave it as an improper fraction. So we have to do some work to make it back into a mixed number. So the way we make it back into a mixed number is by doing division. What I stress in class every day is that if you see a fraction, it is just showing you a division problem. So you should divide. So let's do our long division here to make this back into a mixed number. Okay? We're going to do 341 divided by 35. So 35 cannot go into 34, but it goes into 341 9 times. And 9 times 35 is 315. So we do our subtraction next. And 341 minus 315 is 26. So we're going to stop there. We're not going to add a decimal point. We're not going to add a 0. We have our 3 numbers that we can use to make a mixed number. Okay? So let's talk about which one's which. The top number, the quotient, is the whole number in your answer. And then the remainder and the divisor are going to be your parts of your fraction. The remainder is the numerator. The divisor is the denominator. So when we put this all together, it's going to say 9 and 26 35ths. Okay, and that's our final answer, 9 and 26 35ths. Let's go back here again. So 9 is here, and 26 over 35. And that's our final answer. Double check again, like we did last time. You can't simplify 26 over 35, so we're good to go. That's it. That's your final answer. Okay, so those are your two methods. We're going to practice those a little bit, but I want to show you what happens when you get a mixed number for your answer that doesn't look particularly right. It needs regrouped. So here we have 3 3/8 plus 5 and 11/12. Okay, so we're going to solve this using method 1. I'm going to find common denominators, and here it's 24. So we have 3 and 9/24 because we multiplied by 3 and 3. Here we have 11/12 turning into 22/24 because I multiplied by 2 and by 2. Now I'm going to add. 3 plus 5 is 8, and 9 plus 22 is 31. So if you notice, there's something wrong with this mixed number. The numerator is larger than the denominator, and we can't leave it that way. It's not in simplest form. Okay? So what we have to do is figure out a way to make this a proper fraction and showing the same value for the entire mixed number. And what we're going to do is kind of what we did with the last method, do some division. We're going to take and make the improper fraction here into a mixed number and then regroup it with the 8. So what I might mean by that is, if I take the 8 and just put it out here, and then I write the improper fraction portion as a mixed number by dividing, it becomes 1 7/24. So again, the way you do that is 31 divided by 24, and 24 can go into 31 one time, and the remainder is 7. So just like that long division problem we did before, we're going to do that with just the 31 over 24 and make this. Now, once you have that, you have the 8 from the front right here. You have the improper fraction turned into a mixed number here, and just put them together. So 8 plus 1 is 9. And then you have your 7/24 on the on the side. So 8 and 31/24 can be regrouped into 9 and 7/24. Okay? And we're going to practice some more of that in different ways throughout this unit. But regrouping is going to be an important tool you need to use when you work with mixed numbers. Okay? So the simplified answer is 9 and 7/24 because 7 over 24 cannot be simplified any further. And it's a proper fraction now. Okay? So that's that. Now we're going to talk about one other thing, borrowing. Borrowing is kind of like regrouping, but you have to do it before you start adding or subtracting the problem. So what you'll see here is when we find a common denominator, something's going to look funny with the problem. So let's find our common denominator. For 8 and 7, the least common denominator is 56. 8 times 7. There's nothing smaller that you can use, so let's use that. So our common denominator is 56. I adjusted my numerators. 8 times 7 is 56. So 1 times 7 is 7. 7 times 8 is 56. So 4 times 8 is 32. So what do you notice about this math problem right now? What's not right about it? What you'll probably notice is that 7 is smaller than 32. So when that happens, when the first numerator is smaller than the second numerator, we have to regroup by borrowing in this first mixed number. So instead of making the first number a little bit larger, like in the last one, it went from 8 to 9, we're going to take something out of this 5 and put it into the fraction. So we're going to kind of work in reverse from what we just did in the last problem. Okay? So here's what you need to think about. 56 over 56 is equal to 1. That's important here. Okay? So what we can do is write the 5, just this part, as a mixed number, and then add it on to the 756. So one way to write 5 as a mixed number is like this. 4 and 56 over 56. If you find the value of that, that's equal to 5. And the reason it's equal to 5 is because 56 over 56 is equal to 1, and 4 is equal to 4. 4 plus 1 is 5, right? So if I take this and use that just for this part, and the 756 is just kind of hanging out on the side, I can use this and add these numerators together to make a mixed number. So, like I said, those are equal. So here's how we're going to put them together now. The 4 and 56 over 56 plus the 756, we're going to combine by adding numerators just like we always do. So 56 plus 7 is 63. So 4 and 63 over 56 is the same thing as from the previous slide right here, 5 and 7 over 56. So 5 and 756 is equal to 4 and 63 56. And if we regrouped like we did in the previous problem, it would turn back in to the 5 and 756. Okay? Now we can subtract, because 4 and 63 over 56, the 63 is larger than the 32, so we can subtract now. So let's do our subtracting like we did with all the other problems. 4 minus 2 is 2, and 63 minus 32 is 31. So there's our solution, 2 and 31 over 56. Check at the end to make sure you can simplify. Here you cannot, so that's your final answer. Okay, so we went over a few things. I want you to practice these 4 problems. So hit pause, try out these 4 problems, do any borrowing or regrouping where you need to, and then when you're done, you can unpause and see how you did. If you need help as you go along, just raise your hand, and we'll be along to give you a hand and answer your questions for you. Okay? All right, so here are your answers. Okay? In each problem, I found a common denominator. In problems 3 and 4, there was either regrouping or borrowing to do. So for problem 1, it's fairly straightforward. You find 30 as your common denominator. You adjust your numerator. So here we multiply by 6. Here we multiply by 5. And you add. 2 plus 6 is 8. 18 plus 5 is 23. Denominator stays the same. Here, in question 2, again, a straightforward problem. 8 and 3, a common denominator is 24. So 7 times 3 is 21, and 8 times 3 is 24. Here, 3 times 8 is 24. 2 times 8 is 16. So do your subtraction. 3 minus 1 is 2. 21 minus 16 is 5. And there's your final answer, because 5 over 24 cannot be simplified. Okay? Question 3, you start off pretty straightforward, but at the end you'll notice you have to regroup. So we found 63 as our common denominator. We adjusted our numerators and added. 36 plus 56 is 92. So 7 and 92 over 63 is our answer. It's not our final answer because it needs simplified. So off to the side, do a little division problem to make this into a mixed number, the 92 over 63. And what you'll get when you do that is 1 and 29/63. So you add that to the 7. There's your final answer. Okay, last problem here. 6 is your common denominator. But what you'll notice is 2/6 is smaller than 3/6. So we need to borrow here. So we're going to take 6 out of 6 from the 8 and put it into the fraction. So if we take that 6 out of 6 out of here, that's 1 whole, so this becomes 7. And 6 out of 6 plus 2 out of 6 is 8 out of 6. So we have 8/6 right here. And 8/6 minus 3/6 is going to be 5/6. 7 minus 4 is 3. So 3 and 5/6 is your final answer. Okay, hopefully you did pretty well on those. If not, we're going to get plenty of practice in. The problems are actually pretty straightforward, except when the borrowing or regrouping has to be done. That's maybe something new for you, maybe not, but we're going to practice that a lot. So hopefully in the next couple of classes you're going to get the hang of it. It's going to become kind of easy for you. So as always, this video is here to rewatch, to rewind, to pause, to practice, and use this as you need to as you go through the unit. Okay, we'll talk to you next time.